Hi, I'm Matt with Stark Brothers, and this is a tour of my backyard garden. So I thought we'd start off with the beginning and the end. So the end, in the sense, this is the compost bin, and a lot of the fruits and vegetables that we grow, and there's waste from the kitchen, we can walk out and throw it in here and create our own compost. And we try to live as sustainable as reasonable that we can here in the suburbs. So we like to reuse stuff, and we compost our scraps. This compost bin I built out of the kids' old wooden playground. So we've repurposed that, which is kind of fun. Over here we've got some elderberry plants that I planted last year. This one is flowering. The pollination partner, I don't think it's quite mature enough to flower just yet, but a couple varieties. Interestingly, we have terrible rabbit infestation around here, and they eat everything. That's why the chicken wire. But this one, they ate before I put the wire on it, and I just took the cuttings that they chopped off and just shoved them in the ground, and then kept them watered, and a couple weeks later I had a couple new elderberry plants. And then this I'm going to be turning into a little food forest corner. So this was when our kids were young, this was their playground area. This was a bare root tree that I planted last year. It's a Starking hardy giant Asian pear, and this was bare root. All of this, I don't know, I'd say from about right here is all growth this spring. Same with these, so it's really taken off quite well. Really happy with how this is turning out. And then I've got a pollination partner, a Bartlett pear over there. And then this area has a couple of gooseberry plants. Before I cut the chicken wire up, the rabbits got to this one over here and ate. And then also we had a really couple of late frosts, and it nipped the flowers off. But I do have a few gooseberries growing there. They'll be red. This is a red Hinnonmaki. It's just starting to get hints of red. And I always like to try and grow interesting, like just different things. They don't look that healthy, but these are sesame plants here. And apparently they should get to be like 3 feet tall. They're not doing so well, but we'll see what happens. And then over here I've got, this is a Montmorency cherry tree that I planted last year. Also growing really well. This is all new growth this spring. I'm happy with the way that's going. And then, like I said, eventually this will be a food forest type of area, and we'll do some more permaculture stuff. So I've planted just a couple. The rabbits are getting them, but I got a couple safe behind the cage. But this is Comfrey, which is great in permaculture. Its roots apparently grow super deep, I don't know, like 8 or 10 feet down, and then it'll suck nutrients from way down up. And then you can mulch with this stuff and compost with it, and it'll really feed the system. But I'll put more plants as these mature. Most of this is just volunteer cilantro that had went to seed from my garden. I just let it. But I do have 3. These are Roselle, which is a hibiscus, and they don't grow as well here. We're in zone 6B. They don't grow as well. You need a longer growing season, but they'll grow these pink kind of reddish flower. I think they call them calyxes. But the flowers, and after they open up what's left, you can make tea and like, I don't know, punch and stuff like that out of it. So I've never had these before, so we'll see how it goes. It's another Montmorency cherry in a pot that I haven't decided where to put. Some more comfrey. This was left over at the nursery up at the main office. We had a few plants that somehow lost their labels, and we couldn't sell them to people if we don't know what they are. But I planted it, and so we're gonna have some blackberries here pretty soon. But yeah, mystery blackberry plant. More leftover beds made out of the kids' playground. But this was supposed to be a blueberry bed. And like I said, I like to experiment and just see what happens. So I had some blueberry plants, but then I had one raspberry plant that just spread like crazy, and I've just let it go. And then these are, these ones here are Alpine Strawberries, which I grew from seed. And they make relatively small berries, but they're super sweet. They taste like Jolly Ranchers. They're really good. And then these ones are also strawberries that grew from seed. I think they were called Tresca or Regina, but I think they're still producing. I know I saw a couple, most of them have been picked. Yeah, there's still strawberries in there. And then I don't consume tobacco and don't recommend people consume tobacco, but I thought it'd be fun to try and grow tobacco. So that's what these plants are here. Just kind of fun experiment. And then we move over into the vegetable garden. Some squash and green beans and some herbs, basil and rosemary and stuff. This all I grew either from seed inside and brought it outside this spring, or just planted it directly in the ground. And then back behind us, I've got a bunch of different varieties of onion plants. So these are onion plants from Stark Brothers. You buy them, they look like almost like scallions or green onions in a bunch. And you plant them, and yeah, they're growing crazy this year. I crop rotate, so every year I put them in a different location, and this year they're really taking off. But yeah, but the onions are starting to look really good. They'll be ready. You harvest them when the tops start to get brown and fall over, and usually here in Missouri that's right around, I'd say July 10th or so. But yeah, great crop of those. Got tomatoes back here, I think probably about 6 or 8 different varieties. And then these are just cattle panels, which make great tomato trellises. Over here I've got some cabbage and broccolis. Broccoli's getting ready to be picked, I think. Some cabbage, some kale and lettuce that's bolted, cilantro that's bolted. Bunch of carrots. Carrots are starting to come along. They're still tiny, but cute little things. Need to be thinned out. These are all potatoes. Some of these are from Stark Brothers. Some of them are I got elsewhere, but I don't know why, but this year my potato bed is like growing like crazy. Looks really good. And then I guess it's worth pointing out, you can see down here I've got drip irrigation installed in all these beds with the valves in here in the back, and I can run that for maybe an hour every morning, and a lot better than overhead watering where the water gets everywhere. This gets it right where you need it. But these, I think these are like 4 or 5 different varieties of peas. I love these ones with the purple flowers. These are really pretty. But yeah, I think we haven't been doing a good job keeping up with harvesting these things because they're getting huge. Once these finish up here in a couple weeks, I've got cucumbers and honeydew type melon over there. So we'll take these out and then they'll grow up over the vine or the trellis. And then over here, these are all garlic plants that I planted last October. And these ones are all, I don't know how you call it, reseeded. Like we harvested our garlic last year and I reserved some of the bulbs and then split them up and replanted them back in October. So this will be self-sustaining for now on. These are leeks that I grew from seed inside. They look like they're doing pretty well. And then I do square foot gardening for the most part. So these are all different pepper plants, and 1 per square foot. And then over here we've got a strawberry patch that's kind of overgrown its bounds, but that's okay. Most of this side is June bearing strawberries, and for the most part it was really pumping out strawberries last week and the week before. We were getting like a good bowl every 2 days. It's starting to slow down. And then over here we've got all kinds of raspberries that are really just starting to pick up. So there's some ripe ones. This was, I think this whole section here was probably about 4 or 5 bare root raspberry plants that I got from Stark Brothers and just planted them. And then every year they just kind of propagate themselves and grow a little bit more. And then same deal, these are asparagus I bought at Stark Brothers a few years back. And unfortunately I had some voles, little mice looking things, get in overwintered and they dug holes and they ate up all the roots, and the asparagus really didn't do much this spring, so we've decided to kind of leave it be and not harvest as much and let it grow. And if you come around the corner over here on the end, got a bunch of blueberry plants, and so these ones, the birds get them before we do usually, but there's a couple getting really close to being ready. Right, the one on the end has a whole bunch. I don't think they're not as thriving, but we have these, they're called Ann Yellow Raspberries, and I think this is one here, but they're not ripe yet, but those are my favorite, the yellow raspberries. And then not content with this much space, I love the raspberries, I wanted more. So I took some of the, I don't even call them volunteers that would just grow up next to the main stalks and transplanted those out here. So might take another year. I guess these ones are starting to bear fruit, but another year or two this will get overgrown like that and we'll have a ton of raspberries. And then along the fence down here are a bunch of blackberries. The rabbits ate them to the ground over the winter, so we'll see how they do this year. This is a Redhaven peach tree that I planted last year. It was a pretty tiny plant, but it should be okay. It'll take another year or two and it'll get going. This is a Hall's Hardy almond tree, and it looked about like that peach tree maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago. So this has really grown a lot in the last 2 seasons, but you can see something's getting a hold of the leaves. So I got some neem oil that I'll probably spray on there to see if that helps. And then this here is a Liberty apple tree that we've had for probably at least 15 years now. It's gotten to the point where it produces fruit every other year, so this is an off year for it. And then I've got, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4 other apple trees, and there's a that are relatively new, and a hazelnut tree over there. So I guess you could call this my orchard side of the house. But yeah, for the most part, that's it. I got a grapevine. I had 2 grapevines that were like 10 years old that were back there that were producing well, but they were getting diseased, so I pulled them up, put the tomatoes where they're at, and then I'm gonna have grapevines grow along the deck.